All right, welcome Twitter followers, whoever saw my video, whatever, and to the people who are just watching because it's James Bond, I guess you're welcome to. Don't know. So this whole thing, something I kind of came up with that I was going to watch every single Bond film and do a video on it. I'm going to review the videos, stuff like that. I'm going to talk about the actors, things that happen in the movie, stuff like that, and of course review it out of 10. Gonna do Dr. No all the way down to Spectre. I'm gonna do Never Say Never Again, stuff like that. Won't do the original 1967 Casino Royale. I'm gonna do a body count of how many women he slept with in this, a body count of how many people he killed. I'm gonna talk about the villains, the cars, the gadgets, the Bond girls, everything. I'm gonna kind of dissect these films in a little bit of way, but not like in a art house way. So we're gonna start this whole journey, 26 episodes. We're going to start this whole journey with Dr. No. And then we're going to do the next movie, from Watch It With Love, on and on and on and on, until we finish with Spectre. This may not get done until No Time to Die comes out, and I'll add that in there with it. The 26th episode will be more along the lines of me ranking everything, like ranking my favorite movies, my favorite Bonds, my favorite Bond girls, villains, cars, gadgets, openings, all this stuff. But for now, this episode in itself is Dr. No, 1962. It's an old movie. This is a very tight hour and 49 minutes. It's actually the next to shortest James Bond, the shortest James Bond being Quantum of Solace, the much maligned and hated Quantum of Solace. Dr. No is where this all started out. The James Bond series was written by James Fleming, and he wrote a series of books, and they decided to make movies out of them, as they do now. Just no really original ideas. Let's just take this book and turn it into a movie. Very interesting. The director was Terrence Young. This is not his first outing with Bond. He'll be back. We have Sean Connery as Bond, the very first Bond. We have 3 Bond girls, but really, there's only one you have to worry about. A Bond girl is very special in the Bond movies. A lot of people think that the girls in Bond movies are there just to sleep with Bond, and there are some. But for the most part, a Bond girl is someone who is strong, smart, can outwit the normal man, stuff like that. They're actually strong women. It's not just women who sleep with Bond, although most Bond girls sleep with Bond. Your villain here is also titled Dr. No. He does have the first Bond car in this. We'll get to that. And the theme song of this one, we have many theme songs. They become a thing later on in the series. This one is by John Barry and the orchestra, written by Monty Norman, and it is the James Bond theme, which makes this kind of the most important Bond song because it's in every single one. And we all know the iconic Bond song. Now, there is one strange thing about this movie. There was no cold open in this at all. Cold open is like the action sequence before they show the title. They're like, oh, it kind of sets up the story for Bond. This didn't happen. It was straight into the theme. We have the title sequence. It's very 60s, lots of circle lights intertwining and everything. Just really psychedelic stuff. And then the music changes to like a 60s dance music, almost like, I wouldn't say swing, but like really weird, damn near disco. And you see the silhouettes of women dancing. And then it switches again to a very, very almost creepy version of Three Blind Mice. It's a jazzy version of Three Blind Mice, and you see silhouettes of 3 men, old men walking. So, but this actually kind of, it transitions from their shadows into real life. They're crossing the street. Almost Abbey Road style, but cold brew keeps me alive. So they go straight into it, and I guess this would kind of be considered the cold open because these 3 blind men, the 3 They're three black men. They're assassins apparently, and they are just murderizing people, just absolutely murderizing everybody. And it's setting up saying that they are killing people for a reason, but they don't know what yet. Because this is a thriller, so or a suspense action, so it's a slow build. But we actually go about 8 minutes before we even get to see James Bond, and we don't even see James Bond first. We see the first Bond girl, Sylvia Trench, which Sylvia Trench, very, very strange character. She's played by Eunice Gayson. Sylvia Trench shows up, says, "My name's Sylvia Trench," and Bond does the famous line, "I'm Bond, James Bond," which was actually ad-libbed by Sean Connery. Sean Connery thought it would be cooler if he said, "My name is Bond," because in the script it's, "I am James Bond," but he decides to say, "I am Bond," lights a cigarette, James Bond. Kind of like a comeback to her, "I'm Trench, Sylvia Trench." She said it really snooty-like, and he kind of comes back with it. So we actually meet James Bond right here, Sean Connery, the man himself. But there is some fun facts with James Bond here. He was not supposed to be played by Sean Connery. The original person was Cary Grant. If you can imagine Cary Grant as James Bond, because I cannot. Like that doesn't work for me. He was great in North by Northwest, so Vertigo, stuff like that. But he was too old to play Bond. He was 58 when they made this movie, so would have been a very old Bond. Not to mention his salary. His salary he demanded was the equal to the entire budget of Dr. No. So didn't work. Another thing was Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, hated Sean Connery. He did not want Sean Connery to play this role for three reasons. One, James Bond is supposed to be English, and Sean Connery is Scottish. James Bond is supposed to come from a high-class upbringing. Sean Connery was from a working-class upbringing. And James Bond is supposed to be a clean-cut, smooth guy, and Sean Connery was very ruggedly handsome. Apparently, Ian Fleming doesn't know the term acting, because you become someone else. But what's funny about that, though, is after seeing this movie, Ian Fleming loved Sean Connery as James Bond so much that in his next novel that he wrote, which was actually On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he wrote that in 63 or 64. When he wrote that, he actually changed James Bond's backstory to where he had Scottish lineage. So James Bond became Scottish because of Sean Connery. And I always thought that was just the coolest thing ever, that he changed it around. And then with Sylvia Trench, she has some fun points to her too, because later we meet one of my favorite Bond girls. She's not technically a Bond girl, but I consider her a Bond girl because she's in almost every single James Bond movie. And we meet Moneypenny. Now, Moneypenny in this is actually she's doesn't have a whole lot of screen time. She actually only has about 2 scenes, but she was played by Lois Maxwell in this. And here's the crazy thing about Lois Maxwell, the Moneypenny, and Sylvia Trench, Eunice Gayson. When this movie was first shot, when it was first casted, Eunice Gayson was supposed to play Moneypenny, and Lois was supposed to play Sylvia Trench. But the director saw Eunice Gayson and thought that she exuded sexuality, so she needed to be a Bond girl. She needed to be Sylvia Trench. So they switched roles because Sylvia Trench was supposed to be in 6 Bond films, and Moneypenny was only supposed to be in 1. But what ended up happening, Eunice Gayson comes back as Sylvia Trench From Russia with Love, and then she's gone. She's no longer a part of the series. Moneypenny stayed on for almost every single Bond film, and Lois Maxwell actually played Moneypenny 14 movies in a row. She played her all the way up to the 80s. So I think Lois Maxwell won that one. But yeah, it's very very cool that Maxwell won that. But anyway, we spend the next basically 15 minutes of this movie after we meet Moneypenny, or after we meet Bond. We spend the next 15 minutes just getting to know Bond. We see that he's very good with the ladies because he gets with Sylvia. We see that he's very defiant, and because the director of where he works actually wanted Bond to switch guns. He's like, no, you can't use your gun. You're going to use the Smith & Wesson. And Bond goes, well, I actually have been using this gun for a long time. No, you have to use a Smith & Wesson. Okay. And he leaves with the Smith & Wesson, hands it to Moneypenny, walks away, gets back to his place, and pulls another gun. After getting rid of the gun he wanted so bad, he gave it to the director, but he gets back home and pulls another one out. It's very defiant. They also show that he's very smart because he does thwart a kidnapping. When he finally gets to Jamaica after leaving Sylvia and everybody behind, he goes to Jamaica and someone tries to kidnap him. But before he even gets in the car, he calls the embassy. Hey, did you send a car for me? No, we didn't. Oh, okay. So he knows, but he still gets in the car with him, drives around, ends up capturing the guy, and he's going to torture him. Hey, who sent you? But the guy, which I don't consider it a Bond gadget, but he has pretty much the only gadget in the movie, which is a cyanide cigarette. It's a cigarette, puts it in his mouth, he wants to smoke it. No, he bites off the end, kills himself. I do not count that as a Bond body count. That was a suicide. So now we know that Bond he's a super spy. He is the greatest super spy in the world. We know that now. So Bond is Bond. We know. But that does bring us to the main story, where he does do one thing that is kind of crazy, where he kind of booby traps and proofs the room. And he goes into his hotel room, takes a hair out of his head, and puts it on the door. So if that hair is disturbed, we know someone's been in that door. He takes powder and puts it on his briefcase. So we know that he sees fingerprints. He knows someone's been trying to get in his briefcase. Which he's right, because when he comes back, the hair is gone. There's prints on the case. So, we spent the whole thing. It's actually amazing the way it works. I wish I could describe it better. But we're 35 minutes into this movie before we even get a mention of Dr. No. And apparently everyone is absolutely terrified of this guy. The one dude had the cyanide cigarette, and then there is a paparazzi girl that's following him around, taking pictures, and she's willing to have her arm broken before she says anything about Dr. No. But we do hear Dr. No's name 35 minutes in, and Dr. No knows that Bond is there. So his way of getting to kill Bond is to have a professor put a spider in Bond's room. Now, the spider is a tarantula. Okay, and he wakes up when he feels the spider crawling on him, and he kills the spider. So, thwarted again. I just thought that was hilarious. I don't know why. The spider thing cracks me up. But we got 45 minutes in before we get to meet the final Bond girl. Her name is Miss Taro. Forget what the name of the girl that plays her. I think it's Zena Marshall, I think her name was. But this one is the bad Bond girl. She's the one who's on the bad guy's side. And she's going to try to kill Bond. But instead, she calls someone over to assassinate him. He ends up sleeping with her, as Bond does. And it's a little sad because he sleeps with her, wakes up. He knows she's bad the whole time, and he sends her on her way. He calls for his own cab and sends her away. We never see her again. So she's a very short-lived Bond girl. We are 49 minutes in before we see the first ever Bond car. This was before he got into the Aston Martin deal. He had a 1962, I think it was a Sunbeam Alpine Series 2, little car, lots of rounded, very aerodynamic, very fast car. Was all the rage in 1962. Not my cup of tea. I'm more into the muscle car type, but we saw it. And then we get another kind of funny. It's a funny death. I hate saying that, but it is. In the car chase, when there's a point where a car is rolling down the hill, and all it's doing is going down the mountain. It's not really bouncing a whole lot. It's just going down the mountain and just explodes. There's no flipping. There's no hitting anything. It just blows up. And for some reason I laughed because it was like, so cars just explode here? Cool. That's nice. I thought it was funny. But yeah, so and it's he thwarts so many assassinations in this. He keeps they keep trying, but yeah, he ends up hiding in some bushes or something. It was crazy, but that's none of that's important. The important was, well, the thwarts assassination. The most important one was the professor. The professor tries to kill him. He puts a pillow underneath the blanket. The professor shoots it, and he pops out from the corner. James Bond kills him. He doesn't really kill him at first because the guy reaches for his gun and pulls it, click, and Bond says, "It's a Smith & Wesson, and you had your 6," and then pops him dead. So Smith & Wesson coming in again. But the important part is, and it's weird, but an hour and 2 minutes into this movie, we finally see the Bond girl, Honey Rider, coming out of the ocean like a freaking angel. Beautiful woman. It's the coolest, one of the coolest entrances ever. And see, there's a funny thing about this. When she comes out of the ocean, she was supposed to be nude, but instead they had her wear almost a flesh-colored bikini. And this is a two-piece. This is 1962, and this woman's wearing a two-piece bikini, which was unheard of. And there are historians that say that Honey Rider is the reason why two-piece bikinis are worn today. Because after people saw Honey Rider wearing this, they started wearing two-piece bikinis. So that's a cool little one for the ladies. They are captured. Bond, Honey Rider, and Bond's pal that's been helping him through some of this. But his pal ends up getting killed. He gets this flamethrowered, and it's awful. I don't know why he didn't move, but it's whatever. But so we're a full hour and 27 minutes into this movie, into an hour and 49-minute movie, hour and 27 minutes in, before we finally get to meet Dr. No. Now, fun thing about Dr. No is Dr. No is played by Joseph Wiseman, but the original person that was cast to play him was Christopher Lee. We all know Christopher Lee, the amazing actor that he is. He played Dracula, Saruman in Lord of the Rings. And he's also, fun fact, Ian Fleming's cousin. Ian Fleming is the creator of Bond. He is Ian Fleming's cousin. So it's pretty cool. But right after we meet Dr. No, he actually gives Bond a martini. A dry martini with a lemon pill, shaken, not stirred. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it as Bond's drink. It's called a Vesper, which I don't even think they call it a Vesper until Quantum of Solace or Skyfall. It's down the line before they start calling it a Vesper, but in the Casino Royale book, it's called a Vesper because it's named after his one true love, basically. And she's a very famous Bond girl played by Eva Green. But he gets to see that, and we get to hear for the first time the agency that's always trying to blow up the world or kill Bond is called Spectre. There is a movie called Spectre, but it's called Spectre, which actually stands for Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion. So basically they just do bad things. So that's cool. And then Bond's finally beaten up. He hasn't taken a punch this whole movie, and he finally gets beaten up. But you actually kind of don't, it isn't on screen. You see one hit to the stomach, but they kind of pan the camera away. So I'm wondering if they just didn't want to show Bond being beat up, which is, it's possible. I mean, there's a lot of great shots in the movie. This movie is beautifully shot, and if you actually watch it after I tell you this little fact, you'll see it. But this movie is so beautifully shot that there's a director that actually watched this movie and then called to get the production designer's name to use him in one of his own movies. And that director was Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick called up the makers of this movie and said, "Hey, I need your production designer to make Doctor Strangelove." And if you watch the movie, now that you know that, you'll see there's a lot of Kubrick-esque shots. That huge, vast rooms with people in them, people doing things in the background. Empty, vast rooms is a big one, and lots of angles. You'll see a lot of corners, a lot of stuff like that. That's a big Stanley Kubrick thing. So I think he was doing that before Doctor Strangelove, but he saw it and he loved it. And it's just it's cool to know that James Bond kind of helped Stanley Kubrick do something. But the the setup to the end, there is a setup to the end that basically slows to a complete crawl. Now he's crawling through the vents like Die Hard style. I know what a TV dinner feels like. And he's crawling through this, but when he gets out, he gets into basically a war room where they're about to launch some nukes. And it becomes like almost a 10-minute long thing where it's just, are you ready? Ready? Do this? Yes. You got it? Okay. And it's just that for 10 minutes. And and Bond is just walking around in his hazmat suit, just looking around. And it just kind of, the movie just grinds to a halt. But I was doubled over with laughter through the entire thing, because when you watch that scene, when he gets out of the vent, puts on the hazmat suit, after he kills the guy, he goes in to the room, and it's Austin Powers. It is the scene in Austin Powers. There's Dr. No in his suit, and if you remember in Austin Powers, when Dr. Evil is wearing his suit, it's in that square thing, and he keeps trying to do things, but he can't reach his face, and that's Dr. No does that several times. And there is when Dr. Evil is like, "You henchman arbitrarily turning knobs," there is a henchman in Dr. No that is arbitrarily turning knobs. And it made me laugh. But the one that got me the most was, there is a guy with a clipboard, and if you watch this after seeing this, you have to look for this at the end, like when Bond is in the room with Dr. No. There's a guy with a clipboard, and he's got his pen, and he's writing something down and looking up at a light. It's a red light like this big, and it's just blinking red. It's basically like, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's off, it's on. And it just made me laugh so hard. And I love this movie though. I'm not taking anything away from this movie at all. But it was awesome. But right after all this happens, we get the Bond fight. We get the Bond and Dr. No fight, which is basically just them rolling around in their hazmat suits. They can't really punch or anything. And they get on the elevator, go down to the boiling water, and Bond jumps up out of the boiling water. Dr. No doesn't have hands, so he can't grip. And he can't, and he dies. Dr. No dies, which adds to the body count. So, facility goes boom. There you go. And Bond runs off to save Honey Rider, and they float off into the sunset on their boat and start making out. They get a little kiss action going on, which is actually appropriate, because Sean Connery and the beautiful Ursula Andress that played Honey Rider were actually having an affair during the making of this movie while Bond was married, and what ended it was Bond's wife got pregnant. The 60s were a weird time because they stayed together for a long time, but Bond wins, has the boat. The boat's floating off, and the British intelligence comes and saves them. And that is the end of Dr. No. And I loved this movie. I absolutely loved it. I can't say that it's the best Bond, because it was Bond trying to find his footing. And he has to find himself in this. So I'm going to rate it out of a 10. I gave it 8 out of 10. It's very cool, but not one of the better Bonds. I've definitely seen some better ones. Sean Connery exudes Bond, so he was great. The director, Terrence Young, wonderful job on that. You have your 3 Bond girls, Honey Rider, she is the first Bond girl, and she's gorgeous. This is the Bond girl of the movie. So, because each movie has one real Bond girl. Sylvia Trench is actually James Bond's girlfriend. Basically, they do sleep together, but in the next, I think it's the next one, From Russia with Love, where she is Bond's girlfriend. So if they are boyfriend girlfriend in this, then he cheated on her with Honey Rider and Miss Toro. Miss Toro was played by Zena Marshall, she was awesome as well. The villain, Dr. Julius No, played by Joseph Wiseman. I can't really put him at the top of the list of greatest Bond villains. Yeah, he was evil and people were scared of him, stuff like that, but he didn't do anything. I mean, he didn't even show up until an hour and 27 minutes into the movie. So, yeah, all right. The car, the Sunbeam Alpine Series 2, 1962. Not the greatest Bond car. It didn't have any gadgets in it. There are no gadgets in this movie besides the cyanide cigarette, and if you want to count Bond's silencer when he kills the professor. Maybe. The song, James Bond theme, very important song to the series. It's what creates a series, It's what creates the, Bond by that. It's that din 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 din. Yeah, it's that one. But overall, 8 out of 10. It's cool. I'll probably be watching From Russia with Love tonight. Then I'll do another one on that one. It's good stuff. But hopefully I kept this under an hour, well under an hour. I'm going to try to keep these relatively short because no one wants to look at my face and hear me drone on for an hour. Trust me, I know. So hopefully you'll join me for the next one. We'll be doing 1960. You hear my page turning because I have it all written in my notebook. 1963 is From Russia with Love. So it should be pretty awesome because we have Terrence Young coming back for a second direct and Sean Connery again. We have, I do believe we have 3 Bond girls, and we have 2 villains in this one. So, including the introduction to Blofeld, which is kind of the Dr. Evil of the series. He appears quite a bit, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun facts, and I'll be doing it again. I'm gonna try to release a few of these a week, if not one a day, possibly. I don't know. It depends on how much time I have. So, thanks for watching, y'all.